According to the Pew Research Center, 4 out of 10 people have been insulted, shamed, stalked, bullied, or harassed online. This can include embarrassing pictures like mugshots. The online mugshot industry is just one of the ways sites are profiting at the cost of others. If you want to have your mugshot removed, most sites require you to pay up. But if you don't want to hand them hundreds or even thousands of dollars, you do have other options. Joining us now is Max Sony, the co-founder of Kumana, an agency that handles a lot of reputation management cases. Max, what options do people have when they discover their mugshot is all over the internet?
Typically, most people have very limited options. Unfortunately, search engines like Google aren't really here to help people, contrary to popular belief. There's no way you can tell Google, hey, look, I'm sorry, but can you please remove this? It just doesn't work like that. Most of the time, they have to work independently, meaning do a whole series of steps and events, creating a LinkedIn profile, things like that, to suppress this image, or they have to hire an agency like ourselves to help them.
And when you help them, what's the process like?
Sure. Typically speaking, we'll look at who the person is, what their accolades are. There's the cookie cutter strategy that almost everyone does, which is let's set up a Twitter profile for them. Let's set up a LinkedIn profile, a Facebook profile. And the reason for setting up all these profiles is because there's an image of the person embedded in each of these profiles. And the idea is that that image in your Facebook profile will now outcompete the mugshot profile, thereby suppressing it almost. It's impossible to remove unless you actually pay the company who put it up there to remove it. Some of them do run that scam. But most of the time you'll end up having to just suppress it so that it's not as visible. But to get rid of it completely, pretty difficult, if not impossible.
So your agency and any reputation management agency, they don't remove it. You just kind of bury it with lots of information.
Yeah, typically that's the protocol. We'll create all sorts of good content about the person. So, again, if you're a media executive or if you're Joe the plumber, obviously the strategy is going to be totally different. A media executive is someone who's visible, and I'm not talking about super celebrity, but just a mid-level executive who might have his name on the occasional press release or might be doing the occasional interview or might be doing, some sort of community involvement where his face and image is being circulated. It's going to be a lot easier for that person to suppress that mugshot versus Joe the plumber, who, is a great guy, but there's just not a lot of information about him, or there aren't a lot of opportunities to then create information about him.
Do you think this is feasible for the average person as opposed to somebody who's maybe high profile?
To be pragmatic, I definitely think that most people can't afford this type of service. Most people are better off, paying the company who put up the mugshot, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth, because these companies might charge, say, $700 to remove your mugshot. It's unfortunate. It's extortion. But to hire an agency like ourselves, or any agency, not even us, but any agency, you're going to get a bill of several $1,000s easily. And it's just a much longer process. So often you'll see celebrities engage in agencies like us because it's just better for them. They get a whole bunch of free PR out of it that we're creating on their behalf, and so forth.
Now, when your agency is suppressing these mugshots, is this process just something you do once, or is this something that you kind of have to continuously monitor and update?
It's definitely a long-term commitment from the client's side. There's an initial burst of work that gets done, and every person's at a different stage in their career and kind of what type of visibility they have. So in the case of someone who is a low-key person, there's going to be a lot of initial work, and the time span is going to be a lot longer. And even after you're done, when I say done, I mean the mugshot's not visible when you type in someone's name. Um, that mugshot could hypothetically return at a later point in time because of Google's algorithm updates and search engine algorithm updates in general.
Will these mugshots ever disappear over time?
Disappear, not really, not unless the website itself is taken down. essentially what Google and these search engines are doing is they're finding the source of the image, and they're locked on right to that source. So unless that image gets deleted or taken down, it'll never disappear. Now, obviously, there are new regulations in other countries being passed. The right to forget rule, which is essentially passed in other countries in Europe, where if certain negative information is older than a certain number of years, you can petition to get that removed from the internet. And so in the USA, we don't have this ability yet. This regulation hasn't been passed yet. But in other countries in Europe, you can have this negative item removed manually.
It's sort of a blanket law in the European Union, but here in the U.S., every state kind of has their own laws pertaining to mugshots and privacy. Do reputation management companies, does the process change from state to state?
Yeah, definitely. So, we always joke about Google and search engines being Big Brother, but they really are. If you're a visible person, meaning you're an executive or someone on that level, it's a lot harder to help someone like that because most of the time, if they've again been out there, have a LinkedIn profile, are visible, have done press releases, so on and so forth, that are attributed to them, uh, Google almost essentially knows where that person lives. So an executive in San Diego who has a negative item written about him will have a more difficult time because what Google essentially does is it shows people in San Diego a certain set of results and then everyone else in the USA a totally different set of results. Just because Google knows that person lives in San Diego.
That's a little disturbing, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really crazy because, in certain cases, we've seen negative items appear higher for a person in San Diego, in the city they live in, versus everywhere else. And you really have to wonder what Google's intentions are when, I mean, this is a flagrant negative item, but it's on page one. Yet you go to, say, New York and Google that same exact person, it's not there, or it might be on page two, or it may not, whatever it is. So it's really, really scary sometimes.
Yeah. Now, for the average person, how much damage can a mugshot do?
For the average person, the minute you have a mugshot posted online, it's pretty much you're done. I mean, I don't want to say you're done, but it's a huge problem because everyone Googles everyone at some point. If you're serious about doing business with someone, or if you're serious about marrying someone, you're gonna Google them. It's just gonna happen, and it definitely opens up a lot of conversations. And in many cases, the case might be thrown out against the person, but the mugshot's still there. And unfortunately, you just have to own up to it if you can't get rid of it.
Right? I mean, it can affect pretty much every aspect of your life from dating, career. It could be embarrassing for your family. If you're looking to hire a babysitter or a handy person, you're probably going to Google their name. So they're going
Yeah,
to have some explaining to do if they even get the chance to explain for
we've
themselves.
seen we've seen careers destroyed by this. For example, about a year ago, a mortgage broker, just average guy, contacted us, and he's about 27 years old. Mentioned, Super Bowl, had too many drinks, and got into a bit of a rowdy argument with a police officer, who then arrested him. Case was thrown out. He's a mortgage broker, though, so trust is important, and people Google him just to make sure he's a trustworthy guy. We all know the mortgage industry has, a bad reputation after the financial crisis and so forth. And he has pretty much seen a 40-50% downtrend in business because he'll pick up the phone, he'll get them on the phone. They'll say, "Great, we love you. We'd like to, have you as our mortgage broker." But then he'll never hear from them again.
Wow. Certainly makes you think twice about what you do, but also a lot of times people who end up with these mugshots, it was a case of mistaken identity or charges were dropped or they were found innocent. So it's really unfortunate for everybody. Max, Sony, great to have you on with us today. Thanks so much for sharing your insight.
Thank you. Have a nice day.